In a traditional tea house in Hangzhou, Xiu Ying reflects on her life as she gazes into a broken mirror. A conversation with an old friend leads her to confront her insecurities and rediscover the importance of friendship and authenticity in a world that values appearances. The tea house in Hangzhou exuded a cozy aroma of fresh tea leaves as the afternoon sun filtered through the windows, casting a golden glow over the polished wooden tables. Xiu Ying was sitting in a corner, watching the bustle of the city through the dusty window. People hurried by, each immersed in their own worlds. She allowed herself to get lost in contemplation, but at the same time, a sense of melancholy enveloped her. The reflection in the broken mirror on the wall in front of her was an unsettling reminder of her insecurities. The distorted image of her face seemed to symbolize not only her appearance, but also the confusion that consumed her inside. When did everything become so empty? She murmured to herself as her fingers brushed the rough surface of the table. The clatter of cutlery and the murmur of conversations around her felt so distant, as if she were trapped in a bubble separating her from the world. The daily routine, a succession of obligations and tasks, had drained the color from her life. She had become a spectator of her own existence, stuck in an endless cycle of the same days, without a clear purpose. It was then that a familiar sound brought her back to reality. The bell at the tea house door jingled, and Xiu Ying raised her eyes. Mei Lin, her childhood friend, entered, radiant and full of energy. An instant smile lit up Xiu Ying's face, but soon the joy was overshadowed by a troubling thought. Mei Lin had always been the successful, fearless one, while Xiu Ying felt like a shadow beside her. Xiu Ying. "It's been so long," exclaimed Mei Lin, rushing to hug her. The embrace was warm and comforting, but Xiu Ying couldn't help but feel a tightness in her heart. "You look so beautiful. How have you been?" The same old routine," replied Xiu Ying, forcing a smile that didn't fully reflect what she felt. "And you? I heard you've been traveling a lot." "Yes, I was in Europe recently. It was amazing. The landscapes, the culture, everything so vibrant. You need to see these places, Xiu Ying." "It's transformative," Mei Lin spoke enthusiastically, her hands gesturing as she described her adventures. With each word, Xiu Ying felt smaller, as if she were being swallowed by the greatness of her friend's life. "That sounds wonderful," Xiu Ying said, her voice almost a whisper. She looked at the cup of tea in front of her, avoiding Mei Lin's inquisitive gaze. The reflection in the broken mirror seemed to mock her, as if saying she had let her own opportunities slip away. The truth was that Mei Lin's life was a collage of achievements that Xiu Ying could barely dream of. While Mei Lin traveled the world, she was stuck in a city that felt increasingly oppressive. "Do you still paint?" asked Mei Lin, interrupting Xiu Ying's dark thoughts. The question was innocent, but the answer that Xiu Ying held was heavy. "I haven't had time for that," she replied, her voice trembling. "Life, obligations, all of that fills my day." As she spoke, a feeling of regret washed over her. Painting used to be her passion, a way to express herself and feel alive. But now it felt like a distant memory, like a forgotten dream. "You need to get back to it. Painting has always been a part of who you are. Why don't you take a class or just start painting again? It's therapeutic," Mei Lin insisted, her eyes sparkling with the idea of reviving her friend's passion. Xiu Ying looked at her friend, a mix of hope and apathy swirling in her chest. "I don't know, Mei Lin. Sometimes I feel like I'm not the same person anymore. Life has turned me into someone I don't recognize." As she said this, Xiu Ying felt a wave of sadness. There was so much she wished to say, but the words seemed to get lost in the heavy atmosphere of the tea house. Mei Lin watched her, the expression of concern deepening. "Xiu Ying, you don't have to live like this. Life is too short to be tied to things that don't make you happy. Remember your dreams. What happened to the girl who dreamed of being an artist?" Her friend challenged her, and Xiu Ying felt a knot form in her throat. What had happened to those dreams? They had been buried under layers of responsibilities and expectations. I don't know anymore, Xiu Ying admitted, the vulnerability in her voice echoing in the room. Sometimes it feels like all I do is meet the expectations of others. It's as if I'm living to please, not for myself. The weight of her words hung in the air as Mei Lin watched her with a deep understanding. Xiu Ying, life shouldn't be like this. You deserve to live fully, to follow your own desires. Don't let the routine stop you from being who you really are, Mei Lin said, the passion in her voice a call to action. The silence that followed was heavy with emotions. Xiu Ying felt overwhelmed by a mix of gratitude and agony. Mei Lin's friendship had always been a beacon of light in her life, but now that light seemed to highlight the shadows around her even more. I wish I had more courage, Mei Lin, Xiu Ying finally replied, her voice weak. Sometimes I feel like I'm trapped in a web of obligations, and I don't know how to escape. You're not alone in this. We all face challenges, but the key is not to forget who you are. Let's do something about it. How about we plan a trip together? A place you've always wanted to visit, Mei Lin suggested, her hopeful gaze making Xiu Ying's heart race. The idea was tempting, but doubt still lingered. A trip? Now? What if I can't make it? Xiu Ying hesitated, insecurity manifesting in her voice. And what if you don't try? You'll never know what you can discover about yourself, Mei Lin replied with the determination of someone who had already faced her own battles. Xiu Ying looked at the broken mirror once more, and for a brief moment saw a spark of courage reflected there. She knew she needed change, but taking the first step had always been the hardest. Maybe, she began to say, but the words got lost in the air as she struggled against the storm of emotions that engulfed her. What would her life be like if she really made that decision? Xiu Ying sat at the dark wooden table, covered with a delicately embroidered linen cloth. The scent of jasmine tea lingered in the air, mingling with the soft aroma of the rice dumplings that the attendant had just served. However, what consumed her the most at that moment was not the delicacies of her favorite tea house, but the whirlwind of emotions forming inside her. Mei Lin, her longtime friend, watched her closely, sensing the internal struggle that Xiu Ying was facing. Xiu Ying, you're so quiet. What are you thinking? Mei Lin asked, leaning slightly forward with a concerned look. It's just that I don't know where to start, Xiu Ying replied, her voice laden with insecurity. She looked at the teacup, her hands trembling slightly. I feel like my life has become a monotonous cycle, where each day is the same as the one before. It's like I'm trapped in a maze with no way out. But you have so much potential, so much passion inside you. Why don't you allow yourself to explore that? Mei Lin insisted, trying to encourage her friend. It's not too late to rediscover your passions. Passions? Xiu Ying laughed bitterly, but the sound held no joy. What do I know about passions? I've spent so much time taking care of obligations, the house, the family, that I don't even know where to begin. I got lost in all of that. Mei Lin sighed, feeling her friend's frustration. But what about painting? You used to spend hours drawing and creating. I remember your works. They were so vibrant. What happened to that? Xiu Ying's face lit up for a brief moment as she recalled those youthful days when colors danced in her mind and ideas flowed like a river. Painting, it was everything to me. But then life happened, and I set it aside. What's the point of dreaming if there's no time to make it happen? Xiu Ying, you need to understand that life is not just about obligations. It's made up of moments we can create. You can still paint, you can still dream, Mei Lin exclaimed, the passion in her voice growing. Why don't you try? I don't know. What will others think? My family, my neighbors, they all expect me to be a good wife, a good mother. I can't just leave all of that behind, Xiu Ying retorted, anguish evident in her gaze. Sometimes we need to be a little selfish. And that's not a bad thing. You're not just a wife or a mother. You're Xiu Ying, an artist. And you deserve to be happy, Mei Lin said, her determination rising in her voice. Remember what you used to feel when you painted. The joy, the freedom. Don't you miss that? Xiu Ying's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly wiped them away with the back of her hand. I do, I miss it so much, but life isn't like that, Mei Lin. I can't just go back. And what if you tried? How about we start with a small project? A painting, something that represents how you feel right now, Mei Lin suggested, full of hope. You can do this. I'll be here to support you. A project? The idea sparked a small flame of hope within Xiu Ying. Maybe I can try, but I don't know if I'm still capable. You are capable, Xiu Ying, and I will help you, Mei Lin asserted firmly. Let's do something together. A walk in the park, perhaps, where you can soak in the beauty around you. Inspiration can come from anywhere. Xiu Ying hesitated, doubt still lingering over her. And what if I can't do it? What if the painting doesn't turn out how I imagined? That doesn't matter. What matters is the process, what you feel while creating. Don't worry about the outcome, just let it flow, Mei Lin said, the empathy in her voice touching Xiu Ying's heart. With a deep sigh, Xiu Ying looked at her friend. You always have a way of making me see things in a new light. I really appreciate that, Mei Lin. The atmosphere around them seemed to change, the tension slowly dissipating. Xiu Ying felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. Maybe I should start allowing myself to dream again. After all, what do I have to lose? Exactly. Let's go together. Let's adventure. And what about your desire to travel? You've always dreamed of visiting those mountains north of the city. How about we take that trip? Mei Lin proposed, her eyes shining with excitement. A trip? I don't know. What if I can't carry all of this forward? What if it's just a temporary escape? Xiu Ying asked, insecurity resurfacing. Then it will be a temporary escape. Sometimes we need a break to rediscover who we are. The important thing is that you give yourself the chance to reconnect with what you truly love, Mei Lin replied, her voice soft yet firm. You're right, Xiu Ying said, her mind racing but starting to visualize the possibility. I've always wanted to see those mountains, the fresh air, the tranquility. I've always thought that would bring peace to my life. Then let's go. Let's plan this. A weekend, just the two of us. We can explore new places and maybe even find inspiration for your paintings, Mei Lin exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. Xiu Ying smiled for the first time during their meeting, a small light beginning to shine in her heart. All right, let's do this. But you promise you won't leave me alone on this journey. I promise. I will be by your side every step of the way, Mei Lin assured, holding her friend's hand. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just need to be yourself. The idea of a trip began to take shape in Xiu Ying's mind, and with it, a wave of hope enveloped her. The whispers of her old passion for painting grew louder, like a soft echo resonating in her heart. She looked at Mei Lin, feeling a deep gratitude for having someone so special by her side. Thank you, Mei Lin. You always knew how to help me see what really matters, Xiu Ying said, her voice now more steady. We are in this together, Xiu Ying. Let's rediscover the beauty of life and all it has to offer, Mei Lin replied, smiling broadly, the warmth of friendship filling the atmosphere around them. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Xiu Ying felt that perhaps she was starting to find herself again. Life was not just about obligations. It was also about dreams, laughter, and the beauty of shared moments. And with her friend by her side, she was ready to take the first steps toward this new journey. The sun slowly bid farewell on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city of Hangzhou. Inside the tea house, Xiu Ying felt a mix of restlessness and anticipation. The aroma of fresh tea filled the air, but the comfort that should accompany the hot drink was overshadowed by a shadow of doubt. Mei Lin was sitting across from her, her expression animated as she spoke about the trip plans. Xiu Ying, you have to come. It's a unique opportunity to rediscover your essence, to reconnect with who you really are, said Mei Lin, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. That village is beautiful, full of memories you've held onto for so long. Xiu Ying looked at her friend, admiring the confidence she displayed. Mei Lin's life seemed like a fairy tale, full of adventures and achievements. But what about my responsibilities? My shop, the bills, my family. There are so many things I can't just abandon, she replied, a weight in her voice reflecting her internal struggle. Mei Lin shook her head, recognizing Xiu Ying's struggle. I understand, but you can't let fear stop you from living. Sometimes we need to step away a little to find our way back. Don't you feel trapped in an endless routine? Sometimes, yes, Xiu Ying admitted, looking at the broken mirror on the wall, the pieces reflecting her distorted image. But I don't know if I have the courage. What if I go out and can't return to who I was? That's a myth, Mei Lin replied firmly. Life is a constant flow of change. You don't need to worry about going back, because what you will find will be a new version of yourself. A version that no longer carries the weight of expectations or insecurities. The conversation flowed like the tea Xiu Ying was serving, warm and comforting. However, the hesitation still enveloped her like a heavy cloak. She wanted to believe Mei Lin's words, but the idea of leaving everything behind, even temporarily, was frightening. Memories of her youth, when she ran freely through the village streets, began to emerge in her mind, like shadows in an old film. Do you remember that time we went to the lake and you tried to fish? Mei Lin laughed, breaking the tension. You were so excited, but you ended up falling into the water. Xiu Ying smiled at the memory of the incident, a moment of pure happiness and carefree joy. Yes, and you laughed so hard you almost choked on your tea. I still remember your soaked face and how you tried to clean yourself up, but you were so happy, Mei Lin said, her voice soft, almost nostalgic. We need more moments like that, Xiu Ying, moments that make us feel alive. Xiu Ying felt a wave of nostalgia. The desire to relive those carefree days began to grow within her, but it was soon interrupted by a critical voice in her mind. But that's just a memory of the past. What if I can't go back to being that woman? You don't need to go back to who you were, Mei Lin insisted, breaking Xiu Ying's chain of thoughts. You just need to be who you are now, with everything you've learned and experienced. The trip could be the chance to rediscover your dreams and passions. The pressure in Xiu Ying's chest eased, but uncertainty still lingered in the air. What if I don't like what I find? She questioned, doubt reflected in her gaze. That's the beauty of the journey. What matters is that you are willing to allow yourself to feel, to open up to new experiences, Mei Lin replied, with an encouraging smile. I will be by your side, no matter what you discover. Hearing her friend's words, something inside Xiu Ying began to stir. A feeling of urgency, a need to break free from the chains that bound her to the life she had built. She looked out the window, observing the vibrant city, but feeling that something was missing. It was as if a part of her was asleep, waiting to be awakened. Maybe I should think more about this, she said, her voice softer, almost a whisper. But what if I decide to go and then regret it? You will only know if you try, Mei Lin argued, with a gentle firmness. But staying still, that is the real regret. The conversation continued, and Xiu Ying began to visualize the village she had left behind. The stone streets, the wooden houses, the sound of the river flowing nearby, everything began to form in her mind like a vivid picture. The idea of reliving those memories and feeling the freedom of her youth irresistibly attracted her. Okay, she finally said, taking a deep breath. I will go. I will go with you to the village. Mei Lin's smile lit up the room. Seriously, that's wonderful. Let's plan everything. And who knows, you might even start painting again. I don't know if I'm ready for that, Xiu Ying replied, but she already felt a spark of hope igniting in her heart. Just thinking about going to the village made her feel more alive. The two friends continued to talk about the trip, the plans taking shape like a dream that was beginning to materialize. With each word, Xiu Ying felt a part of the broken mirror in her mind starting to rebuild. The memories of her youth, once distant and blurred, were now becoming clear and vibrant. The next morning, they would leave for the village, and Xiu Ying couldn't contain her anxiety and anticipation. It was a new chance, a new beginning. Looking into the mirror at the tea house, she saw only a middle-aged woman, but somehow she also began to see the dreamy young girl who still lived within her. Xiu Ying, are you ready? Mei Lin's voice brought her back to reality. Yes, I am, she replied with a genuine smile. I'm ready to discover what life still has in store for me. And with that, the two friends set off, the journey awaiting them with promises of rediscoveries and perhaps a touch of the magic they had left behind. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky of Hangzhou with shades of orange and pink, when Xiu Ying and Mei Lin decided to explore the village where Xiu Ying had spent her childhood vacations. They walked together through the narrow alleys of uneven stones, surrounded by traditional wooden houses that exuded nostalgia from the past. The aroma of tea scented the air, mixed with the sweet smell of flowers adorning the small gardens. Look, Mei Lin, that's Mrs. Wang's house, where I used to buy rice cakes, Xiu Ying exclaimed, pointing to a house with time-worn ceramic tiles. Mei Lin smiled, admiring the memory in her friend's eyes. And you always came home with your hands full and your heart light, didn't you? Xiu Ying nodded, her gaze lost in memories. Yes, I felt so alive back then. Life seemed full of possibilities. The sadness in her voice did not go unnoticed by Mei Lin, who watched her closely. They continued walking, listening to the gentle sound of the nearby lake water, reflecting the clouds and the last rays of sunlight. After a few turns, they reached a small art studio, where a local artist was exhibiting outdoors, surrounded by his vibrant paintings. The artist, a gray-haired man with a deep gaze, was immersed in his work, brush strokes and colors blending on a canvas that captured the essence of the village. When he noticed the presence of the two friends, he smiled and waved. Welcome. Come see what life has taught me, he said, gesturing to the paintings. Each canvas is like a story, a piece of my soul. Xiu Ying and Mei Lin approached, admiring the vivid colors and expressive shapes that seemed to dance on the canvases. The artist observed their admiration and began to share a bit about his journey. You know, art is not just about what you see, it's about the truth it carries. Often people get caught up in appearances, forgetting to follow what truly moves them, he said, pointing to a painting depicting a woman in a field of flowers surrounded by butterflies. This woman is me in a moment of freedom. When I painted this, I set aside all my insecurities. It was a rebirth, the artist explained, his eyes shining with passion. Xiu Ying felt a tightening in her chest. His words echoed in her mind, making her reflect on her own life and the chains that kept her bound to routine. Mei Lin, sensing the intensity of the moment, asked, "And how did you find that freedom?" The artist smiled with understanding. Look within yourself. Ask yourself what makes your heart vibrate. Don't let yourself be swayed by others' expectations. Authenticity is a treasure that many do not find. The words reverberated in Xiu Ying, who began to visualize the colors and shapes that filled her mind, the images of her old paintings that she had abandoned along with her dreams. You're right. I lost myself along the way, she murmured, feeling a wave of emotion. But it's never too late to find yourself again, the artist replied, gently touching her shoulder. Life is a cycle, and there is always the possibility of starting over. The friends continued to converse with the artist, absorbing his stories and advice. The sun slowly set, and the daylight gave way to a gentle twilight. They said goodbye to the artist, who encouraged them not to give up on their dreams. "Let's sit by the lake," suggested Mei Lin as they moved away from the studio. Xiu Ying agreed, her heart light with the inspiration she had just received. They found a wooden bench in the shade of the trees, where the cool evening breeze brought with it the sweet scent of the water. Sitting there, they watched the reflection of the moon on the lake's surface. The silence between them was comfortable, full of unspoken thoughts and feelings. Finally, Xiu Ying broke the silence. "Do you think it's possible to be who we were before?" she asked, her voice tinged with insecurity. "Of course it is," Mei Lin replied, looking into her friend's eyes. "We change, but that doesn't mean we can't rediscover parts of ourselves. Look at me. I have a seemingly perfect life, but sometimes I miss who I was before success." "How so?" "You always seem so confident and fulfilled," Xiu Ying replied, surprised. "Because that's the image I created. But inside, I also struggle with my insecurities. The pressure to meet expectations has distanced me from my essence," Mei Lin confessed, with a sad look. "Sometimes, I wonder if all of this is worth it." Xiu Ying felt a warmth grow in her heart as she listened to her friend. It was comforting to know that they both shared doubts and fears, even if in different contexts. "So, what do you desire?" Xiu Ying asked, encouraging her friend to reflect. Mei Lin smiled slightly. "I want to be more authentic. I want to embrace my dreams and not worry so much about what others think." "And you, Xiu Ying, what do you wish for?" She hesitated for a moment, the question making her think of everything she had kept inside herself. I want to paint again. I want to express myself, feel the freedom to create without fear of judgment. I want to rediscover the Xiu Ying who forgot how to live." "Then how about we start now?" Mei Lin suggested excitedly. "Let's find a place and let it all out. Life is too short to hold ourselves back with insecurities." Xiu Ying looked at her friend, determination growing inside her. "You're right. I can't delay my dreams any longer. The friendship between us is one of life's most valuable treasures, and I don't want to miss this opportunity." The two friends sat in silence, contemplating the lake that reflected the stars. The moment was magical, and Xiu Ying felt that a new chapter was about to be written in her life. Like a mirror, the water in front of her reflected a new hope, a new vision of herself. "Let's make a pact," Mei Lin said, breaking the silence again. "We promise that regardless of the difficulties, we will always seek our authenticity and support each other in our journeys." "I promise," Xiu Ying replied, a smile blooming on her face. Mei Lin's words resonated in her heart, like a gentle song of encouragement. They raised their hands and sealed the pact under the moonlight, a moment of connection and deep understanding. As the wind blew softly, carrying away the dry leaves that danced in the air, Xiu Ying realized that life was so much more than the surface. It was a mosaic of experiences, emotions, and relationships. The journey was just beginning, and she was ready to reconnect with her true essence. After returning from the trip, Xiu Ying sat in her small studio, a room illuminated by the soft morning sunlight filtering through the dusty windows. The walls were adorned with some of her old paintings, now covered in a layer of dust and memories from a time when her soul felt free. She took a deep breath, feeling the smell of paint and paper, a mixture that made her feel alive again. Her heart raced with an expectation she hadn't felt in a long time, and her hands trembled slightly as she touched the materials that used to be her companions. Xiu Ying had decided it was time to return to painting. Her emotions, which had been trapped for so long under the pressure of obligations and expectations, now bubbled inside her, clamoring for freedom. With a brush in hand, she began to touch the blank canvas, allowing the colors to flow like a river, carrying away the frustrations and insecurities that had accompanied her. Each stroke was a release, each blend of colors, a new emotion expressed. "You're doing great, Xiu Ying," Mei Lin's voice echoed in the studio, filling the space with vibrant energy. Her friend always had a gift for lighting up the room with her presence. "Thank you, Mei Lin," Xiu Ying smiled, sweating a bit as she realized her friend's happiness was contagious. "I'm just trying to remember how to do this." "Look, you don't need to remember. The art has always been inside you. Just let it flow," Mei Lin replied, watching the brush strokes with admiration. "These colors, they are alive." Xiu Ying paused for a moment, staring at the canvas where a setting sun was beginning to take shape in shades of orange and pink. What had once been an empty space was now becoming a reflection of her emotional journey. "You know, it's like I'm rediscovering parts of myself that I had forgotten," she confessed, a sparkle in her eyes. "It was as if I had lost myself amidst so many obligations." Mei Lin approached, examining the work in progress. "This is wonderful. You have to show this to the world. In fact, I'm thinking of opening a gallery. And guess what? I want you to be the star of the exhibition." The proposal caught Xiu Ying by surprise, and a mix of excitement and apprehension flooded her. "A gallery? For me? Do you really think my work is good enough for that?" "Of course. Your talent is undeniable, Xiu Ying. You just need to believe in yourself more," Mei Lin encouraged, placing her hand on her friend's shoulder. "Art is an extension of who we are, and you have a rich story to tell." Xiu Ying felt her heart warm with Mei Lin's words. For years, she had been hiding behind a facade of obligations and responsibilities, but there was her friend, encouraging her to expose herself to be true. "You've always been so encouraging, Mei Lin. Thank you for that." The two spent hours discussing the idea of the gallery, exchanging ideas and laughing about childhood memories. The conversation flowed naturally, and Xiu Ying realized how much she had missed the friendship that had always been there, but had been overshadowed by routine. However, in the midst of that joy, Xiu Ying's phone rang, interrupting the light atmosphere. She looked at the screen and saw her daughter's name, Lian. An instant weight settled in her chest. "Sorry, I need to take this," she said, quickly getting up. "Hi, Mom!" Her daughter's voice sounded on the other end of the line, but there was a tone of concern that made Xiu Ying's heart race. "What happened, Lian?" Xiu Ying questioned, trying to hide her unease. "Mom, Dad and I are worried about you. You haven't been focusing on your responsibilities. What's going on? What are you doing with the painting? Isn't that a distraction?" Lian's words struck Xiu Ying like an arrow. "I'm just exploring a part of myself, dear. I'm trying to rediscover who I am," she replied, feeling torn between the freedom she was beginning to feel and the expectations her family had always imposed. "I understand, but you have obligations. This can't be more important than your family," Lian insisted, her concern evident. "You always taught us to prioritize what is right." Xiu Ying sighed, the pressure on her shoulders increasing. "I know, Lian, but it's also important for me to be happy. I don't want to feel lost anymore." "But what if it affects your work? What if you can't go back to what you were?" The daughter's voice was now filled with anxiety. Xiu Ying felt a knot form in her stomach. What had become of her hopes and dreams when life turned into an endless list of responsibilities? "I promise I won't neglect what's important, but I need this time for myself. Please understand." "We're just worried, Mom. I'll talk to Dad," Lian said, her voice softening a bit. "Just don't forget about us, okay?" "I would never forget you. I love you both," Xiu Ying replied, but the call had left a bitter taste in her mouth. She hung up, turning to Mei Lin, who was watching her with an understanding look. Are you okay? Mei Lin asked, noticing the change in Xiu Ying's mood. Not exactly, Xiu Ying replied, sitting down again, her mind racing. Lian and my husband are worried about my choices. They think I'm getting distracted and that I no longer care about my obligations, and I don't know how to deal with it. Mei Lin moved closer and sat down beside her. Xiu Ying, you can't let other people's expectations define who you are. Life is about finding balance. You don't have to give up a part of yourself to meet someone else's demands. But what if it means disappointing them? Xiu Ying murmured, insecurity showing in her voice. Sometimes disappointing others is necessary to avoid disappointing yourself, Mei Lin said firmly. You have the right to pursue your own path. Art is a part of you that has always been there, and now that you've rediscovered it, you can't let anyone stop you from shining. Xiu Ying looked at the canvas, where the painting was slowly taking shape. The colors danced before her eyes, reflecting her internal struggle, and at the same time, the beauty of her journey. You're right. I can't let fear take over. Yes, and remember, I'll be by your side. Let's work together to make this happen. Mei Lin smiled, her determination overflowing. Life is made of choices, and this is yours. Let's make it amazing. With those words, something inside Xiu Ying began to rearrange. The insecurity was still there, but now there was a new flame ignited, a determination that overshadowed the doubt. She looked at Mei Lin, and for the first time in a long time, she felt she was on the right path. Art, friendship, and authenticity were intertwining, and even though there were challenges ahead, Xiu Ying was ready to face them with courage. Xiu Ying found herself at a standstill, her heart racing and her mind restless. The words of her family still echoed in her ears like a distant lament that followed her with every step. You need to be responsible, Xiu Ying. Painting is not a career. You have obligations. Those were the voices that kept her trapped in a life that felt increasingly empty. She stepped away from the dinner table, where the conversation had turned into an attack on her new aspirations, and decided to seek a moment of peace. In the tea house, the cozy atmosphere contrasted with the emotional storm brewing inside her. The walls, adorned with traditional paintings, seemed to whisper secrets of past lives, while the aroma of fresh tea filled the air. Xiu Ying approached the broken mirror that ironically drew her in like a magnet. She saw herself reflected in pieces, each fragment a representation of her insecurities, yearnings, and fears. Who am I really? She murmured, more to herself than to the mirror. The distorted image behind the broken surface reminded her of what she had struggled to become over the years. Looking closer, she saw not just her figure, but the woman she had dreamed of being, a free, vibrant, and full of life artist. Yet instead, she was a woman who felt trapped by others' expectations. Meanwhile, Mei Lin, who had settled at a nearby table, watched her friend intently. She noticed Xiu Ying's internal struggle and decided it was time to open up. With a gentle gesture, she beckoned Xiu Ying to join her. Xiu, are you okay? You look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, she asked with concern. Xiu Ying hesitated, but the sincerity in Mei Lin's eyes encouraged her to speak. I'm struggling, Mei. I want to follow my heart and dedicate myself to painting, but my family doesn't understand. They think I should focus on a more conventional life. Mei Lin smiled softly, recalling her own battles. Have you ever thought that maybe a conventional life isn't the only way to be happy? I've struggled with that too. The life everyone thinks is perfect actually has its own challenges. Sometimes appearances are just a facade. Xiu Ying was intrigued. What do you mean by that? I've always been seen as the successful woman, Mei Lin began, her voice tense with emotion. But behind the achievements and smiles, I also felt insecurities. You know, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I wonder if all my travels and accomplishments were just a way to distract myself from what really matters. Xiu Ying felt a lump in her throat. You? Insecure? But you seem to have everything under control. Sometimes, control is just a way to hide what we really feel. I have fears too, Xiu. Fear of not being enough, of disappointing those I love. What you see is just the exterior. Mei Lin's words resonated deeply with Xiu Ying. They shared not only friendship, but also the fragility that came with expectations. So what should we do? How do we find a way that allows us to be true? Xiu Ying asked, hope beginning to blossom in her heart. We need to embrace our imperfections, Mei Lin replied. We need to be brave enough to pursue what we really want, regardless of others' opinions. Life is too short to live by others' expectations. The conversation flowed like the tea surrounding them, warming their hearts. Xiu Ying finally felt the pressure that had been weighing her down beginning to dissipate. You're right. I want to live the life I've always dreamed of, even if it means challenging my family's expectations. And I will be here with you, Mei Lin assured, holding Xiu Ying's hand. Let's go together. We can explore this as artists, as friends. Life is a blank canvas, and we have the freedom to paint it however we want. Xiu Ying smiled for the first time that day, feeling the strength of friendship surrounding her. Thank you, Mei. You've always been the light I needed in moments of darkness. The two friends, now more connected than ever, decided it was time to take a brave step into the unknown. With a new sparkle in her eyes, Xiu Ying stood up and looked at the broken mirror once more. This time, she didn't just see the distorted image, but a woman ready to face her fears. Let's make a pact, Mei Lin suggested, her voice full of determination. We promise each other that we will pursue our dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem. Promised, Xiu Ying replied, feeling a growing warmth in her chest. Let's remember that what matters is being authentic, not perfect. In that moment, the broken mirror no longer seemed a symbol of insecurities, but a representation of their complex and interconnected lives. They were imperfect, but each brought a unique beauty that deserved to be celebrated. With a new perspective, Xiu Ying and Mei Lin left the tea house, their souls revitalized and ready to embrace the authenticity they longed for. As they walked through the streets of Hangzhou, the city vibrated around them. The bright lights, the sounds of urban life, and the smell of fresh tea blended into a symphony that invited them to live fully. They knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but they were determined to face it together. Let's have an art exhibition, Xiu. Let's show the world not just your paintings, but your emotions, Mei Lin suggested, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. An exhibition? Xiu Ying repeated, surprised by the idea. Do you really think my paintings are good enough for that? More than good enough. They are authentic, and that's what matters. Let's take the first step together, and who knows, maybe inspire others to break free from their own chains, Mei Lin replied, full of conviction. Xiu Ying smiled, feeling the pulsating energy of friendship and hope. Finally, she was ready to break free from the ties that held her back. Together, they would not only rediscover their passions, but also support each other in the vulnerabilities they shared. And so, amidst the city's glow, two friends found the courage to dream again, to allow themselves to be truly free, not just for themselves, but also for each other. Now let's have a brief reflection. Xiu Ying's story reminds us that we often get lost in other people's expectations and forget to live for ourselves. How many times have we set aside our dreams out of fear of judgment or responsibility? Xiu Ying's life teaches us that it's never too late to rediscover who we are and pursue what truly makes us happy. Whether it's through art, a hobby, or a simple trip, the important thing is not to lose sight of our essence. If you've ever felt this way or learned a lesson from this story, comment below. We'd love to hear how this journey resonated with you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because there are many more beautiful and surprising stories waiting for you. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content. Watch the next videos. You'll be amazed by the stories that are yet to come. See you in the next video.